Hello, everyone. Welcome into today's weekly movie update. So, the title of today's episode is Did Movie Award Shows Ever Really Matter? I'm of the opinion that yes, they most certainly did, and they no longer do. I'm recording this today on January 14th. This is the Friday after the total embarrassment of the Golden Globes, which is going to be part of this story. I will get into that more later. It was terribly bad, though. I'll tell you before we get into that more. It was a total embarrassment. The response is very telling. The response from the audience, the response from people actually in Hollywood is very telling. And like I said, we're going to get into all of that in just a second. I want to take, just before I dive into all this, the Patreon is live right now for 5 Minute Critic. I really want to thank Solo Locks. I saw that you subscribed to the Patreon. I cannot wait to give a bunch of quality extra content. We have a bunch of live streams in there. We're going to be doing a lot more kind of behind the scenes discussions about movies. And I'm excited for everyone that joins in, and we can continue to have a bigger discussion about all things movies. But to start back as to whether or not award shows did ever matter, I really think that they did matter at one point. I think that it meant technically a lot to the industry. I think it was a dance in a lot of ways between the entertainment industry and the audience, kind of like a one for you, one for me type thing, meaning that every now and then there'd be a small movie that would win an award, and then you would have a 5 year stretch wherever huge awards are being given out to much more prominent movies. To just to I would say it was a way that every now and then it would be a small movie for Hollywood wins, and then after that would be a much larger movie for everyone else. And it would mean obviously a lot to celebrities, because for celebrities they were able to celebrate themselves, celebrate everything that they were accomplishing. The part that everyone says is kind of like a patting themselves on the back type thing. And it was also, I think, more importantly than anything else, it was for the audience. It was for the audience to get together to celebrate America as pretty much the greatest storyteller, and to see that America had the greatest filmmakers on the planet. And you would always be able to see that from the quality of the content that they were putting out. But something changed. And I think it changed in the mid to late 90s. And I saw this come out a lot from how people have been talking about the Oscars in the wake of how terrible the Golden Globes have been doing. In the 90s, the Academy stopped giving awards to movies that everyone was watching, and it moved its attention much more to, as one Hollywood Reporter put it, the movies that never could have survived competition from blockbusters. And I don't think that was ever the point of the Oscars. I think whenever they made that decision that we're going to instead turn this Oscar level of focus onto small movies to boost their appeal, it became much more about money, much more about what I think a lot of people would call pretentious storytelling. And it didn't end up appealing to a lot of people that are the audience. And I think that that is kind of where the seeds were sown of people completely checking out of this award show. And I think that the idea that a lot of these movies would survive without the Oscars is false. Like there, and we'll talk about the movies that have been coming out that kind of have destroyed the Oscars a little bit, I'd say. But I hate that idea. They name things like Hurt Locker, No Country for Old Men, American Beauty. I think that we're in a weird transitional period, and I don't think that that is true. There's a great quote that recently came out from someone in the industry that said, "The film awards business, what is left of it after the latest round of COVID shutdowns, has devolved into an inside game that is played between the studios, the promoters, the talent, the filmmakers, and the media, with little or no connection at all to the outsiders, the people." And I think that that is, in the end, what is going to bring them down, because it does not matter how much interconnection is going on in the industry. If people are not watching the award shows, then they actually don't matter. It does not matter how much money is pumped into them. It does not matter how glamorous it is. It does not matter how famous the people that are there are. If there's nobody there to actually watch the thing, I feel like it's a lot like Tinkerbell. It's like, if everyone believes in it, then yes, it can be a very, very powerful machine. But if no one shows up, then there literally is no more point anymore. And that's, I've seen so many people that give commentary about movies, so many people that give commentary about award shows. They kind of shoo away all this. They shoo away the idea that any of it is declining. They act like it's impossible that any of it's declining, which I find a little bit silly. You can see from the 70s to the 90s, the viewership was always very consistent. And I mean, it was like between 40 and 50 million all the time. Now, occasionally it would dip into the 38 millions for like a year or something like that. But actually, wait, no, when was it? It was in 1998 or 1997. Yeah, it was. I think it was in 1998 whenever it hit 57 million people. Um, that means that if every single TV counts as one view and every TV has at least two people in front of it, that is over a quarter of the entire country watching the Oscars. You can't say that that is not an incredibly important event. And you can't say that that doesn't mean that there's some value in it. There's some meaning in it that points to something very important for our own culture. So I really, and there are a lot of people that have commented. And again, thank you for everyone that has commented. I don't quite feel this level of cynicism towards the Academy Awards to say that they don't matter. They clearly matter. They clearly for a long time mattered. And if anyone listening, please in the chat put what it is about the Oscars, the Academy Awards that are important to you. But look at the actual time though. Whenever you look at the viewership, like look at 2014, we had 45 million people watching. That's the type of audience that the awards enjoyed for over a century, over half a century. In 2016, it goes down to 34 million. Every now and then, that's kind of what happens, but it never happens for 2 years in a row. And then the next year, 2018, it went down to 26 million. In 2020, it goes down to 23 million. People were still not talking about it as if anything was wrong. In 2021, it went down to 9.85 million. And yes, all the critics, they love to say, not critics, all of the apologists, they love to say, well, that was a COVID year. We didn't have so much stuff coming out, blah, 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 blah. But first of all, you had people watching content on streaming more so than ever. How in the world did people not enjoy watching something that celebrated that? And look, even before that, you had a catastrophic decline. And the fact that no one was talking about something going wrong, I think, is unfortunate. And it just kind of accelerated everything that's kind of made the awards a bit of an embarrassment. A sign, again, that I think is a concrete sign that there is a reduction in value of these awards. ABC just recently, just this week, negotiated. They're the ones that broadcast the Oscars. They negotiated dropping the price of their 2020 to 2028 contract by $12.7 million. Like, why does that happen? That does not happen unless you feel like you have lost value on something that you've purchased. This is a closed contract. They had already closed this almost a year and a half ago. They finished this whole thing up. And yet the Oscars felt like, you know what, it's actually a good move if we kind of give almost $13 million back on this contract. And so the question, like, why? Why in the world did any of this happen? I think that Hollywood right now is fighting two wars and they are not able to win both at all. The first one is this war to show that they are about, and it is the buzzword that shows up in everything about equity. It seems like they're trying to push equity in every single area of award shows, of storytelling, even in television. And I've got to say, regardless of any ideological thing going on with that, and obviously that's part of it, and politics alienates so many people in it. It's a shame that that's become so much of what the film industry is. That's exhausting. It's not entertaining. And it's very preachy, but nobody could say that Hollywood has not put all of their energy into that war. And at the same time, they've got a war with the audience. Box office numbers tank all the time. And talk to anyone, the people that actually matter, the audience, they'll tell you that Hollywood no longer cares about entertaining the audience. This was a poll that was done by Hollywood Reporter as well. It says that 49% of pre-pandemic moviegoers say that they are no longer buying tickets to theaters. And then 8% of those people say that they are never, ever, ever going to return, even whenever things do go back to normal. Another quote here from someone in the Hollywood Reporter: audiences remain reluctant to return to theaters, and the kinds of movies that used to rely on the sheen of awards to attract moviegoers now find themselves in peril. And yes, I find that that is correct. Another quote, they say they don't know how to excite people anymore. I'm sorry, that's not a quote. That was a note that I put on that quote. A note that I put on that was that they don't actually know how to excite anyone anymore. It's the entertainment industry. This is the entertainment industry. They are literally the people that are supposed to know how to get people into a frenzy to come back and actually want to do something. Now, look, I understand why there's 49% are not going right now because of, everything that's going on with the pandemic. But 8% of people saying they're not going to come back, they can tell that there's not anything exciting to do. There's not anything exciting to do at all whenever it comes to whenever it comes to what people are watching, whenever they're in the theater. They don't get FOMO from what's going on. Another quote: this year's award show was supposed to celebrate Hollywood's return to glitz and glamour, speaking about the Oscars in 2021. No more masks, no more socially distancing award shows or Zoom acceptance speeches, no more rewarding films that very few people had seen. And that last comment, I know that the article was talking about the entire year itself. That I think is the reason. If we want to talk about why is it that the last year it's gone down, fine. If you want to say the pandemic, say the pandemic. But for the last 5 years, nobody has been watching the movies that they end up giving these awards to. And there are so many annoying people on Twitter that love to say, well, but the thing is, it's the quality of the movies. We got to give the awards to the movies that have the most quality, the movies that are actually the best movies, which is an impossible. You can never figure out what the actual best movie is. Of course, there is a range of diversity of opinion, but it's impossible to actually tell what is one and what is the other. And when you have an award show that is literally supposed to cater to the entire nation, some would say the entire world, you can't just go on the movies that will maybe not even satisfy 5% of the audience. Do that for almost a decade. Do not be surprised that nobody is watching anymore. And that's the thing. They stop listening to the audience. I think honestly, when it comes to connecting with the audience, doing their job, which is entertaining a large population, I think Hollywood is one of the most conservative institutions in this country. Like, now, of course, not on the surface, but when it comes to change, Hollywood never wants to change. They're terrified of it. They have to be pulled like kicking and screaming when it came to change just to get in the streaming game. Netflix got like a 5-year head start on them with that, but they hardly budge because of fear. They did it with streaming. They do it with complex storytelling. Ben Affleck was saying a few weeks ago that TV just kind of took and filled the void with that because no one was doing it whenever it came to movies. And no, the industry doesn't want to do it. And Sololock's comment says the internet destroyed the award shows and the Oscars must pander to the most hardcore audience. They definitely pander to the hardcore audience. I think that if you go to the types of people that are just Oscar devotees, they never vary. They don't leave. They actually feel like the Oscars, if they don't give an award to Paul Thomas Anderson, then it is actual sin that they haven't done that, that the Oscars actually are the benchmark of quality, which I don't understand why anyone actually thinks the Oscars are the benchmark of quality. That doesn't really make any sense at all. But I think to a large, I totally sympathize Solo Locks that yes, the internet in a lot of ways has destroyed award shows. But also, I think that if Hollywood was really on top of their game, and by that, I mean Hollywood was on top of their game in entertaining a massive audience, Hollywood has the resources and Hollywood has the brain power to use the internet to their advantage and still be at the top of the game whenever it comes to entertaining the entire world. I have no idea how they could not have done that. I think it's stubbornness. I think it's stubbornness that they are not streaming right now. I think it's stubbornness that it's so hard to watch the Oscars. I think it's stubbornness that they don't put movies out there that people actually enjoy. And I get that there's a line that you have to walk. You can't just give it to the most popular thing all the time. But also, you can't constantly give it to a movie, I would say, like Moonlight or a movie like Parasite. Movies that, look, my opinion is going to be that they are better movies than what the average viewer watches, but also don't give it to those types of movies all the time. You're going to piss people off, and that makes total sense. And I think we can't, I would accept the pandemic as a reason for last year that you say things have gone badly. I think that that's a safety blanket to say that going forward. I mean, everything is continually using this excuse. Film festivals are still going virtual. They're pushing back like the Grammys, they push back the Critics' Choice Awards. And a great point that's been made by almost every outlet is if you keep doing this, if you continue to always push things back, and kind of make hybrid solutions, the bottom line is that you're making it less fun. You're making it less prestigious. And the audience, and Solo Locks, I think where you make a point about the internet, that's a very good point. They just pick up and move in another direction. They find something else to do. They end up going to hang out with their family on that day, or there's a sporting event that they'll go to, or they'll have a game night, or yeah, they'll spend all night on YouTube because you can get more laughs on, a YouTube compilation than you can at any Oscars, really. And things like West Side Story has been doing terribly, I think, for reasons like that. They're not encouraging people to get back with good marketing. Just recently, a big story this week, Pixar is making its new movie, Turning Red. They're putting that back on Disney Plus. There's been so much proof that people are ready to go back to the theaters. We broke box office records that was even pre-pandemic time records with the new Spider-Man movie. People are more than ready to go back to the theater. They've already been doing it. To continue to push things back, I think, is counterproductive for everyone, but especially for the industry, but they don't even seem to want to acknowledge it. Nick Diaz says celebrities are all over the social media, and watching the Oscars are not as star striking as it was 20 years ago. I totally agree with that. Then, two, Hollywood stopped making great popular movies. Great original writing is on TV. Yeah, and I mean, people have been so many film directors were talking about it for years. David Lynch went into that world. David Fincher went into that world. You get more opportunities on TV. You get to do more stuff on TV than you can do in movies. And I think that movies have really been missing out on. Movies have been way too conservative when it comes to taking chances and doing exciting things. There was a great article about Ridley Scott, I think 2 days ago, that came out where he pretty much said it's a tough job just doing directing. It's an even tougher job looking for the stories where you have to really be on top of it, telling exciting and new types of content that people aren't going to find predictable, which happens a lot when it comes to movies. So no wonder people aren't going to go back. But my take in predicting how it is that this is all going to eventually work itself out, how the Oscars, I think, are eventually going to be put down. And I think the writing on the wall is there in a lot of ways to see what is actually going to happen with this. So, like I said, I don't think Hollywood is focusing on the audience at all. Um, I think that when the awards do go, and I think they are going to go, that's not going to be a minor thing. The awards going does mean that adult films in theaters are going to shrink massively. The industry, I think, has itself to blame for that. The number of non-genre adult dramas. This is actually a quote from Hollywood Reporter again. They said the world wherever we got $50 million for an adult movie is pretty much zero. They wrote that in 2019 we had things like 1917 making $160 million. Ford versus Ferrari was making $120 million. Parasite was making $52 million, and that is gone. And a few people, like one of the presidents of Sony Picture Classics, says that once this COVID passes, they're going to have to look at what the new world order is. And everyone is saying that it is going to be totally different. So here comes to this last week, the Golden Globes. What happened? The Golden Globes are pretty much dead. Sunday was a total embarrassment. The live stream at the last minute was pulled. They were going to do something. They're going to do like a YouTube live stream. If people aren't familiar, NBC said last year, we're not broadcasting this thing. I think that was only because no one's watching it anymore. So they pulled that. I think this is like in South Park where Cartman says, pull one episode, and then after that, you're done. I think they're pretty much done. So one Titan has fallen. They were going to live stream it. They pulled it the last second. What was that guy's name? I'm forgetting. Someone from Comcast said that they didn't tell him to pull the live stream, but they did it the last second. I think the Golden Globes did not go forward with the live stream because if nobody watched, then at that point, the Golden Globes would have literally provided proof to NBC to say, yeah, see, no one cares. We're done with you. So better to just say, oh, if we had done a live stream, hundreds of thousands of people would have watched. It would have been a huge success, but you don't want to, I think they would have sunk their own ship if they had done that. But so some of the stuff they were doing that night was so embarrassing. So all they did was tweet out all of the winners. So for instance, some of the bluffs that they did, they tweeted out a video to Jamie Lee Curtis, used the wrong Twitter handle. They called West Side Story a comedy whenever it won for Best Musical. And they didn't even tweet out the titles of a lot of the winners. Like whenever Tick, Tick, Boom got an award, they just congratulated Andrew Garfield. Didn't even mention the title of the movie. A bunch of people were commenting, what did he win for? What was he in? Which one was this? Was this for Spider-Man? Did he win? Was Spider-Man nominated? It was the funniest thing to see, but really, really embarrassing. The worst thing it could be. It was very awkward. And we were literally seeing it melt down on Twitter, which was tragically sad and funny at the same time. One executive producer watching said, I do not think that was a wise decision at all. It just put the whole association in an awkward position of giving out awards to talent and film studios without any of their support. It's sad to see, but the Golden Globes are acting like they're in the middle of a comeback, and I really don't think they are, which I will say I called that. You can go look at the weekly movie updates from last year, totally called that. But hey, maybe it'll come back. Maybe it will come back, and I'll be wrong on that. But I do really think that the Oscars are next on the chopping block. Like I said, I don't think that the problem is the diversity or corruption that they're saying is why the Golden Globes are tanking. I think that if the corruption had come out and the Golden Globes had an audience 7 times the size of the Oscars, then they would have slapped them on the wrist and they would have moved along. Losing the audience, I think, means that you have no power at all. And then they're just going to find whatever easy reason there is to get rid of you. And the Oscars, I think, are exactly like that. But the excuses that we get about the Oscars, streaming, I don't think that's so bad of an excuse. I think it's a stupid one because if you are actually interested in getting as many people interested in watching your content as possible, don't tell me Hollywood doesn't have the resources to make that happen. But I think the worst one is the excuse that is the audience doesn't like quality movies. That is so divisive. I think that fuels so much division between the audience and the film industry. I mean, it used to be political speeches that kind of pushed people away from the awards, but now it's just preaching at them by saying you have to like this movie, you have to like this movie. 3 years of going, you have to watch this, and then going, I haven't even heard of that one. That's going to piss people off, and then they're just not going to watch. And it's untrue because people will go on their own now and they will find quality content without the recommendation of Hollywood and celebrities. I mean, last year, one of the biggest things was Squid Games. The only reason I watched Squid Game was because people that were in my own circle were watching it. And they're the type of people that didn't want to watch Parasite. They're the type of people that did not want to watch Moonlight. They're the type of people that didn't want to watch a lot of the more, I would say, pretentious type movies are whenever you're talking about an audience of 45 million people. The reason that I don't think this is going to turn around, I hope it does. The reason I don't is that there is a level of delusion in the film industry and Hollywood that shows that there are not going to be any radical changes coming at all. And the thing is, if the awards go, then the funding for almost, I would say, 20%, like Fox Searchlight is almost entirely that play is going to be scaled back so quickly if they end up losing the Oscars or if viewership continues to go down. The only way that the awards are going to go is if the audience goes. And so I think Hollywood has to, in a lot of ways, ignore the audience to save face. There was an incredible article that got almost no play at all on social media titled the Oscars 2021 telecast did not even crack the year's top 100 most viewed TV, which never happens. That had never happened before. And like I said, this got no play from anyone on social media. Go look it up. It was an IndieWire article. Almost nobody commented, retweeted it at all. But I mean, this is pretty much one of the most important pieces of information that's come out about this show. So, just to read part of what they say, the Academy Awards often end up as one of the 10 most watched telecasts of any given year up until 2021. More viewers turned into episodes of TV shows like FBI, The Equalizer, Yellowstone, and NCIS. Okay, but just look at how some of Hollywood, this is Hollywood Reporters talking about this. These various award shows do have something in common, a declining audience. Despite 2021 being a record breaking year for diversity, the 93rd Academy Awards ceremony was described by USA Today as being, quote, a train wreck at the train station, an excruciatingly long, boring telecast that lacked the verb of so many movies that we love. Look, your job is 100% to entertain. Okay. These shows are about nothing more than being entertaining. If you can be entertaining, stream it on YouTube, stream it on Netflix, stream it on Disney Plus, put it on ABC. People are going to tune in. Do that for 3 years in a row. People are going to tune in. But there is just a focusing in, and I think it points to it whenever it says excruciating long and boring. There's a focusing in on preaching about whatever. I don't care if you even agree with what is being said. There is so much preaching that just bores everyone so much. It's like watching a Christian movie. Then the Times, they said, despite an ongoing decline in the TV audience for the Oscars telecast, the show still remains the pinnacle of the U.S. awards season. There was a time whenever the Golden Globes was getting higher numbers than the Oscars currently get, and people were saying that they were the ones that were doing poorly at the time. Like the Oscars are trending so low right now that to be able to look at the information that is coming out about how many people are not watching this thing anymore, and to say that this is still the pinnacle of the awards, it just seems out of touch. This all seems very out of touch. There was another Hollywood insider, a producer actually, Silverstein. She was asked, what is it that you think the Oscars need to do next in order to kind of take the next step in the right direction? The quote was, I argue that the audiences can find quality content without any emphasis on glamour or on high heels. The achievements of women behind the camera as well as in front should be marked before the film industry then concentrates on opening its doors to a wider audience of people and moving away from the financial imperatives that drive a conveyor belt of action and superhero movies, blah, 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 blah. So basically saying the audience can find quality content without the Oscars. Yes, and they are. Solo Locked, you pretty much pointed that out exactly correctly at the beginning of the live stream. And then the point that she goes on to next is pretty much saying we need to focus on the imperatives of diversity before focusing on the audience. And the thing is, no matter what you do, no matter what it is that you do, if you don't focus on the audience, then they're going to go away and you're just going to lose everything. Like, I don't understand how that reasoning works out at all, because you're like shooting yourself in the foot in order to win a race. And then to say things like stop focusing on things like horror movies, that is literally right now where the audience is. Everything, just the level of cynicism in that, everything that is said in this article is literally working in the opposite direction of how I think anyone that wants to bring the Oscars or the Academy Awards or Hollywood in general back in good standing with the audience. Terrible, terrible. And look, I get it. I get it. Diversity is important. Um, I feel like sometimes looking at this, I feel like when you read it, you feel like the only person on the Titanic that feels like we need to get more people in the lifeboats instead of arguing about like class warfare in the cocktail lounge or anything like that. That's just not what is needing to be focused on right now, because the whole thing is literally sinking in a lot of ways. Another magazine totally downplaying the fall of the Golden Globes. They said, we've got the Oscars and we've got the Emmys. We don't even need the Golden Globes anymore. And my question to that would be, who in the world is the? I mean, the Golden Globes are not being killed over diversity and corruption issues. Like I said, if they made money at the Golden Globes and they got views at the Golden Globes, they would have issued a press release, and that would have been the beginning and end of the whole thing. I think the Golden Globes, in terms of how people talk about them, are like a kind of like a sacrificial lamb almost. Like, these people just do not care if it goes, and I don't think they see what the sign of it going actually is. There are some people though that made more logical points. Some saying, "quote All of this doesn't just affect individual films and filmmakers' careers; it affects more than so the business. It actually affects an entire art form, and art is incredibly fragile." And in that article, he was actually asking the audience to come back. But with this breakup, he was I don't think that a lot of people get that in terms of is it the audience's responsibility to come and be part of the film community, or is it the point of the film community to entice the audience to come and spend time in the theater with their movies, with their stories? I think that is where the responsibility lies. To put the onus on the audience, I think, is inappropriate. And it's also just not how the entertainment industry works. You're supposed to be entertaining them. But to continue from that original article that talked about it not even being in the top 100, they hinted at what I think needs to actually be done if anyone is actually interested in really saving these awards. The quote was, Spider-Man No Way Home, one of the biggest, you probably already know where this is going, one of the biggest films of all time, and now headed for more than 600 million domestic to save the pandemic's box office. There's a good chance Marvel fans, clearly the majority contingency of moviegoers right now, may tune in to the Oscars and help rehabilitate ratings if it makes its way to Best Picture. Last year's Best Picture nominees were majority indie films that people simply could not see with theaters closed, watched on video on demand later. Look, that last point, that's how it's been for years. That's literally, I think, the reason why people don't tune in anymore. They know they're just going to get a whatever movie that they have no interest in seeing. It wasn't Nomadland that was the first time that happened. But based on where we are right now, if you were going to say, not what is your ideal movie that you think should win, because if it gets an Oscar, then that means that it's a God-given movie or something. If you were going to be like, what is the best step forward right now if we want the awards to do better in the following year? I think giving it to a movie like Spider-Man No Way Home, which reaches across multiple generations and I think actually tells a character-motivated story, I think it'd be a very, very good thing to give that the best picture, or at least just throw so many nominations at it that people have to watch. But no, I honestly think they should give it to it. And I think that'll entice people to come back. So for the average viewer who has hundreds of better things to do than watch an award show, if they were to ask, should we care at all about this? And I get why a lot of people act like we shouldn't care about award shows. Who cares? They're stupid, blah, 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 blah. But hey, we care about the Super Bowl. We care about the Super Bowl. And that, just like anything else, is entertainment. And I think, yes, we need to care about this. I think it's important to have a strong film community. America is still the strongest and the most powerful film industry, and I think it really, really needs to stay that way. The Oscars, the Emmys, even the Golden Globes were a symbol of that community, of the art form, and it expanded worldwide in a lot of ways. At this point, though, I think it's a real hoping game that Hollywood is going to get its act together and reach back out to the audience. Because, like I said, the audience doesn't owe them anything, even in the slightest. China, as well, is a huge concern, I would say, in this regard, because China is gaining massive influence, and they are not hiding at all that part of their plan is to create content that reaches across the world and is actually then later on in a few decades seen as pretty much the reigner whenever it comes to the film community. And, we can either squabble over how it is that Hollywood should make things or what people should be watching that Hollywood makes, but I think it's going to be a ridiculous conversation whenever eventually I just don't like to think about Hollywood not being the people in charge of this. They're annoying as hell right now. And I really, in the end, hope that they get over that. Um, but look, I'm going to end this stream today with a quote from a Golden Globes voter who was speaking about how they felt that their cherished awards show, the Golden Globes, could be saved. And that is, quote, for them, they think that the main criticism is a lack of diversity, but I don't think they understand the most important issue. They actually need to clean house. And they really do. They really do, because I think there are a lot of people throughout the entire hierarchy that have absolutely no idea why it is that they're doing what they're doing in the entertainment industry. Oh, and Nick Diaz, Sololux, thank you very much. Thank you as always for watching and for commenting along. Nick Diaz asks, why did West Side Story not do well at the box office? Is it lack of star power? I honestly, my take on West Side Story would be that I don't think that the marketing was very exciting. West Side Story, I don't even know if that's the type of movie that people really wanted to even see remade in a lot of ways. I feel like the original is such a classic that whenever you bring back a new one, you really have to make a strong, strong case why you would even go and watch a remake of a classic like that. And I don't think the trailers didn't make it look anywhere near interesting enough. That's my own take. Also, we I think need to stop with all of the movies that are 2 hours and 40 minutes. We are being bombarded with so many movies that are really pushing the 2.5 hour mark. And there's tons of movies out right now that are shorter and I would say get better reviews and seem to be more exciting. They have better trailers. 2 hours and 40 minutes is a tough ask. And I don't think that the trailer looked anywhere near interesting enough. Solo Locks, did you see the SAG Awards snubbed Kristen Stewart? I did see that. That's almost the only thing Twitter is upset about right now. But I don't know. I need to go back and see who else is nominated. I hear Olivia Colman is fantastic in the Lost Daughter. I'll definitely want to see Lost Daughter. I haven't seen that yet. I thought Kristen Stewart did fine. If she gets nominated for an Oscar, I think that'd be good for her. I'm happy to see someone that was in a Twilight movie come and do as well as she's done. It's a good performance, and she really deserves it. Well, thank you everyone very much that has been watching. Please be sure to subscribe as well. As always, Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern time is whenever live stream reviews are happening. Next week is Doctor Strangelove. So go check it out if you haven't seen it in a while. I just saw it again last night. And thank you very much for watching Weekly Movie Update and the Patreon as well. Look for 5 Minute Critic on there. Got tons of cool extras, video topics. You can submit stories and I'll talk about it on Weekly Movie Update. We've got a movie club that happens once a month. And that's about it. So thank you very much again, and subscribe to 5 Minute Critic for future updates on reviews and movie news.